It's time for the Chips and Salsa Show.
The only show about Latinos for Latinos. And did we mention Latinos?
It's the Latísima.
Latinos come in all flavors, shapes, and sizes. You don't have to be Latino to enjoy chips and salsa.
Everybody loves chips and salsa.
Welcome to your Chips and Salsa Show. This is Don Jorge El Alacran with my co-host, Doña Cheryl Rosado.
Hello.
And today we have a couple of guests. We have three guests. We have Alan Skillicorn, and he's running for...
He's the Fountain Hills councilman.
Yeah,
currently.
Fountain Hills councilman,
he's an
activist
councilman.
in the Republican Party and the conservative
he's
movement.
my fellow AZGOP MAL. He's in a different CD than I am, but he's there too, so he's all over the place.
So he has
all kinds of
lot
things
to talk about. The other guest is Herby.
Herby.
That's what I put down. Herby
Kay.
And he's the author.
He's an author
of A Radical Reset, so he'll be talking about that. And
those are our two in-studio guests. We're going to have someone on Zoom hop on.
Yes.
Yvette Serino. She is part of the Latino Coalition. And she's, I'm pretty sure she's located in southern Arizona. I'm not exactly sure if it's Tucson or not, but she's down south, and she will be hopping on to chat with us in a little bit.
And we'll be looking forward to that. Just a couple of reminders before we go any further. We have early elections are underway, and you can view the what's going on at MECTEC, the counting of the ballots, online. All you have to do is go to maricopa.gov, and they have different rooms where you can watch them curing the ballots and counting the ballot. Well, not counting, but curing the ballots and counting later on. So if you're interested, please watch. It's interesting to view them doing their work in there. The RNC convention starts Monday, and then there's going to be a movie on Wednesday that Trump's going to introduce. Everybody should watch that movie. I mean, it's going to be awesome. Okay, and all our delegates from Arizona are heading out tonight, to be at the convention. So we wish them a lot of luck, a lot of safe travels, and we'll be hearing from them on the TV, because you'll see a lot of them. Because I was on at the 2016 when I was at the convention. A lot of people said they saw me in different places at the convention. So we will see our delegates.
We'll all be watching C-SPAN. So
yes, and this week my son came out. He spent a day with us for the 4th of July. It was great. Now he's back at the base that he works at. We're wondering who is going to be Trump's VP. We'll talk about that. And my choice is Rubio. But anyway, without further ado,
yes,
Cheryl?
I'm very excited for a convention going on this week. It's been just a flurry of activity as all the delegates are getting ready to go. They got their their swag from here, and they're getting ready to go over there and vote on some different things. We've had, the convention committees that were meeting pretty much, I think, this last week. So it's just been a lot of excitement, and I'm assuming that we'll find out the VP at the convention.
Yep.
Since first we thought we were going to hear it at the debate, and we didn't. So
Maybe 5 minutes before the nominating speech.
Yeah. Okay.
He's
and then
holding it close.
We'll go around and we'll say. I mean, Jorge already ruined the surprise for who his pick is, and but we'll see who we all think it is. And also wanted to take a minute to thank our sponsor for today. I just wanted to let you know our sponsor is Pure 5 Extraction. And we thank them for the studio that we have right now. It's a great place for us. We have space to record the show. We can put up our signs. I brought a new one today that I just got from the training that I did this week. And so I'm very excited to be an official Trump Force 47 captain. And I brought this to put up here in our studio. If you ever come back down here, you'll be able to see it. And again, we thank Pure 5 Extraction for that.
Yes. Now, to introduce our guests, we'll start with the councilman. And you're the councilman of Fountain Hills, right?
That is correct.
one question. We have a gentleman running for mayor over there, Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Yeah.
Perhaps you've heard of him.
I've heard of him. Actually, even before I lived in Arizona, I had heard of Sheriff Joe.
The meanest
Really?
sheriff.
Well, that's true. Yeah, he did get a lot of national, didn't he? And he's actually...
Oh, he would speak at Reagan dinners and stuff. I mean, maybe we should rename them Joe Arpaio dinners.
Arpaio dinners?
Right?
Yes, we'll have an Arpaio award in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I really, when he was on the show not too long ago, it was right before Trump came, and he mentioned you. I don't think he mentioned you during the show, but he did talk about like that. He felt that you were a strong councilman, and I just thought that was high praise from someone who doesn't typically give out high praise.
Yeah.
But he says he doesn't endorse people, so but the people ask him for his endorsement, so.
He did endorse Gina Godby here for county attorney. But I don't know that I've heard other endorsements. But he just had some nice glowing words for you, which I thought was very kind. And short up my opinion.
I mean that's nice to hear. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and frankly, wow, I have opportunities to talk. I mean, I love to talk about saving Arizona, saving our nation, and I still fundamentally believe that if we advance conservative policies that work, because we all know conservative policies work, that is the way to expand our majorities. And that is something that Arizona lost track of. I mean, unfortunately, we had people that would rather, pill around in the swamp, like the John McCain's and Jeff Flanks and even the Doug Ducey's that would rather, have their day in the swamp than actually have their day in the sun. We have work to do. We have the sun's out. We have crops to sow. And we have to get these conservative policies done, save our state. And that is really how we build majorities again. And it will make things easier. Once we build momentum, it's easier to maintain momentum.
Right. And I think what you said, we're paying for their time in the swamp, the time that they spent swamping around. And some of them were huge disappointments for me, people that I had really voted for and stood behind when I was younger. And they sort of fell apart.
Politicians... They tend to disappoint us because politicians will say and do whatever benefits them, not the people. And that's why we hear about this statesman versus politician, right? And there is a difference there. And how many politicians have disappointed? Most politicians disappoint us, right? It's very few and far between when you find someone that really believes what they say and they do what they say.
So what do you think about Fountain Hills? How does it lean? Conservative,
well, so I'm a numbers guy, right? So I love looking at numbers. So I look at that the 2016 election. Trump won Fountain Hills by just by over 25 points, just a little bit above 25 points. And in 2020, if you combine all the precincts together, he won by about 20 points. There's a couple precincts we might win by like 22 or 23. There's a couple of just under 20, but as a whole, it's about 20. So he lost a little tiny bit. But you would think a 20-point margin would mean that it's a very, very conservative town.
Right.
And I've actually found that people are more culturally Republican. So think about that. So it's a high income. It's a costly place to live. So you really have two really big demographics there. You have very successful blue collar people that have owned their own business, that have done HVAC or contracting or even like development. They've been very successful at it, and they play hard. They've got families, and then you also have people that at either the end of their career or they just retired from a very successful career, like a white collar type career. That's where we don't have a very young population there. So you really have that, someone that is in the trades, it's been very successful, or someone white collar, probably at the end of their career. And that's really and maybe that's popularity or so whatever, but they tend to lean right. I mean, obviously Trump wins elections there, but sometimes when you actually do the hard work and you advance those policies, they get a little nervous. Right? They get, you want to cut spending so you can spend the money. Like, oh yeah, we don't want to raise taxes. We don't want to raise taxes. But like the actual specific cuts, they get a little worried about. And that's maybe a bad job that some of us do. We have to communicate that, and we have to lead. And that's what they want as that leader. So that's really the demographics there, and it is still a challenge. I mean, we have a Democrat mayor. The Democrats have effectively run our town for the past 6 years. Oh, wow. And they've, in a lot of ways, they're running into the ground. I mean, a lot of wasteful spending and stuff, and and the people are still they don't want a property tax in Fountain Hills, so we're doing well there, and they've turned down those type of votes.
Great.
but they're still misspending the money. And we really need a
That's
strong
what Dems
conservative.
do.
We thought we had a strong conservative majority, but typically people get a little afraid and they don't want to go along. So obviously, all these elections matter. And frankly, I see some great people on the the running that we're going to get elected.
So
So
he's been the mayor for about 6 years, you said?
so the current mayor is I would like to politely say a young lady, but she's probably not that young anymore. That is been a long time Democratic activist, former lobbyist, former bureaucrat with Democrat politicians here. Worked for the Arizona State Democrat Senate Democrats. Someone who's very active in the movement, very connected with the mayor of Tucson, the liberal mayor of Tucson, the liberal mayor of Phoenix. I mean, kind of buddy. Loves that, the Maricopa Association of Governments, this big monstrosity that pushes down, the light rail, the woke things like that. And that's who our mayor is right now. And it really, there's a disconnect there. And most people look at someone like that's, been around the community for 40 years, but really the policies that this mayor pushes are brutal on us, on our success in the future. And we really need to push forward, get some conservative things done, and then it gets easier.
And how about the school boards? Are they liberal?
So we right now, if we go by the partisan bias, I believe that we have a 3-2 Republican majority, but doesn't mean conservative. Even though actually we have an open seats right now, so it's actually 2-2. But we really have only really one conservative that's on the school board right now, and it's always tough to recruit candidates, and and frankly, Democrats are a little bit better at that type of ground game because they're in your face. They're always speaking at meetings. They're making it. They're a small minority, but they're a very vocal minority, and they're mean. So like regular parents, they don't want to get involved because they don't want to get yelled and screamed at and such. But parents care about their kids, and
Fountain Hills is like Beverly Hills.
It is.
I mean,
Yet, if you look at our library, we have woke books in our library. I've had parents come to me and go, these books in our school classroom are inappropriate. Now, they did crack down on that. Because whenever you point sunlight and stuff, the rats scurry. So the rats scurry, took the bad books out of the classrooms, and we made some progress there. But those people that put those books in there are still there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if we're not watching them like a hawk, things like that are going to happen. And that's we really need to pick up a seat or two on the school board. I mean, we neighbor Scottsdale, right? So Scottsdale's got a liberal majority there too. Katie Hobbs' twin sister is the lobbyist for the teachers union there, and she's at all the meetings. So you sit down and go, "Is that Katie Hobbs?" She sits down, and it's her twin sister. Okay, and so she's speaking about all the bad stuff they want to do. Well, that's a 3-2 liberal majority there, and all we have to do is pick off one seat. We pick off one seat in Scottsdale. We have a conservative majority, and the people we have on the board that are already conservative and running are stellar candidates, smart, wise, poised. They're really going to be solid candidates. We just pick off one of those, but it's hard. We're up against the unions, and and there's a lot of money to be had. I mean, and I get conservatives. They do stuff. They build businesses. They raise their families. They play hard, but they don't give thousands and thousands of dollars to their political candidates. They just don't. Whereas what happens on the Democrat or liberal side of it, they've got this machine that is organized, that raises money, that the union comes in big money, and a lot of these parents go, well, I don't want to spend $30,000 getting elected to a school board. Well, you know what? Those union members, they've got like $50,000 campaigns behind them, and in a big district, that's what it costs anyways. I mean, stamps, postage, advertising, it adds up. And you have independent expenditure groups. You've got political action committees. And this is all free speech, right? It's all free speech, but it doesn't mean it doesn't cost anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to blackpill you guys.
No, it's just
Even though it's a balance, because I can be a little pessimistic, and I don't want to be blackpilled because I'm optimistic. I think Arizona can be safe. I mean, I think Arizona is slowly like eroding and sliding into California, and maybe not so slowly anymore, right? But I think it can be stopped, and I think that we can build our majorities here. And frankly, if we just had like a really good session where we had a Republican legislature, Republican governor, and we passed some good reforms, not the stuff we did in the past, but did real reforms. And then if you were living in the Bay Area and you wanted to spread your liberalism around, would you choose New Mexico, Colorado, or Arizona? Right? You let them go to Colorado, New Mexico, not Arizona.
Right.
If you want to bring that weird stuff, go there.
Go somewhere
right?
else.
But we have to draw a line in the sand, and we have to get it done here. And once we get it done, then because the demographics are always changing, and people are moving. Arizona is one of, especially Maricopa County, one of the fastest growing states and counties. Phoenix, like people are growing. And where are they growing? A lot of it's Southeast Valley, North Valley. And those are right now very conservative areas. But what if you get 1,000 people that live in the Bay Area that come out of the tech industry, and they come here and they start voting for the wacky stuff, right? That's going to change things fast.
And that's what's been happening.
Yeah.
Right?
But if
that's
we draw that line in the
we've
sand,
gone so purple.
if we really work, I think we walked in. Someone said that probably the election's in the bag, right? We cannot look at it like that. Look at 2022, and ladies and gentlemen, I don't know which camera's on me. I did this myself in 2022. I was hearing the poll results, right? And actually, when you look at, and I'm really deep in the polls. I mean, being a statistics guy, some polls are super, super accurate, and some are not, right? The ones that traditionally are accurate, they called this election. They said that Hobbs was going to win by 1%. What did Hobbs win by? 17,000 votes. Just under 1%. So it's actually highly accurate. But a lot of Republicans, they waited to to election day. They waited in line, and if you were someone like, I've got to be work at noon. I can't sit here and wait 4 hours to vote. Or if you're you got a flat tire that day, or your mom, I got to pick up the kids in an hour, and I'm still waiting in line to get in. What happened when all those machines went down and all that stuff happened? A lot of people didn't vote. That 300,000, that magic 300,000 number of Republican voters that did not vote in November of 2022. Well, 300,000 votes, 11,000 for the governor's race, right? We would have won by almost a landslide, right? If we had all 300,000. So a lot of people couldn't vote. But what were they thinking? They heard some of the polls saying, Kerry's up by 10 points. It's no big deal. It's no big deal if I have to go pick up my kids. But you know what? It was a big deal.
Right.
And even I did that. So when I was campaigning, instead of, early on, Kerry Lake and those guys we campaigned for, but I was like, Kerry's probably got in the bag. And it looked like that we had the momentum anyways. It really looked that way, right? Oh, yeah. So what did I do? I started going door to door for Blake Masters. Blake Masters got blown out. I mean, every contact I had pushing Blake Masters was a waste of my time. If I would have knocked on doors just for Kerry Lake, and I live in LD3, which is the legislative district is super solid.
That's the biggest one.
Well, they're all the same. They're all like 208,000 people, but we're a very large conservative majority in LD3. If I would have started pushing Kerry Lake, because every single vote we lost for Kerry Lake was a vote we needed. That would have made a difference, and today we would have made a huge difference.
How did Fountain Hills vote in 2022? Because I know you had said, like you said, Trump's numbers. What were Kerry's numbers?
So Kerry actually lost Fountain Hills.
Yeah. So like you said, not quite as conservative as it might seem.
But it was close. Yeah. To be honest, it was bad. I mean, from across the board, if you look at the results, it was bad, and that was something that. Even people like, I actually went to LD4 and started campaigning there because we had a house race that, unfortunately, we were outspent there, and we lost one of those seats, actually two of those seats. We lost the Senate and one of the House seats there. And, I could, retrospect, I could see kind of things were happening there. But that's where I started to campaign because I knew LD3 was going to be safe.
Like you said, so retrospect is where we're going to learn our lessons, hopefully, and change our plan for the future, and someone who has a plan for the future to radically reset it is our other guest. Here's your book.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Where do you want me to begin?
I want you to tell us what. So
what a radical reset is?
Yes, tell us what it is, because as you said, you are the absolute 100% expert on this because you invented it.
I invented it. In fact, I'm probably the only guy in the world who knows about it or knows how to do it because, you got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. Okay, so I listened to all you guys debating this, and I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm actually a registered libertarian. I'm not going to vote in this election because I don't like anybody running. No, I'm not going to vote. And I'll tell you why. I think there should be a none of the above choice. Now, There are countries that have it. That is not a unique idea. None of the above would be an excellent choice.
Didn't Nikki Haley lose to none of the above in the primary in one of the states?
Yes.
Nevada,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Well, that points to an issue. And I generally would be, if you had to look at my personal beliefs, they're more conservative than liberal. Okay. But having said that, first of all, what comes next? We have this is my assumption. I think that we're all just running around arguing and moving around the deck chairs on the Titanic. I think when you look at the national debt of 34 trillion, which is increasing at the rate of a trillion every 100 days, I think that both parties are responsible for that. I think Donald Trump was just as huge a spender as Joe Biden. In fact, bigger, twice as big. Now, I understand that he had COVID, and you don't have to explain that to me. I'm well versed on the issues, but still, Donald Trump says things like, I won't touch Social Security. That's insane. Social Security is going to have to be touched, and I receive it. But it is not a rational thing to say. But the reason we don't get rational things from our politicians is because only the worst rise to the top since the advent of social media. So if anyone were to run for, and this is where I came from on a radical reset and anti-politism, no, I'm sure that people watching are asking themselves, how did we end up with these two guys? I mean, when you really think about it, 340 million people, and this is who we end up with. 340 million people.
Because we love Trump.
You love Trump because he's the only left, and I say this with love in my heart because did you go to public school in the United States?
Yes.
Okay. You were never taught to think critically, and
I think I was.
With love in my heart, and I don't mean this in any way pejoratively, to understand the issues, you have to look past I'll give you a good example, the border. Okay, right. But Donald Trump thinks he wants to build a wall to stop up the border. It's not going to happen. He talks about exporting 11 million illegal aliens. Nonsense. There were 6,000 Jews left in Berlin in 1945 at the end of the Nazi regime. The Nazis couldn't find all the Jews. If the Nazis can't find the Jews, we are not going to find 11 million, which is probably more like 20 million people. So saying things like we're going to send them back is nonsense. It's just red meat because Donald Trump is a populist. Populists he's not a conservative and he's not a liberal. He's a populist. If you look back into his history, he's always been a populist. He'll seize a popular issue and go with it.
But they're good popular issues.
Because you love them, and that's exactly the decision. Exactly what populism is. I know that you think so, and to have a rational discussion, in which I'd love to have with you on the border, it could easily descend into a really angry discussion because we've so polarized ourselves today. It's like, for example, I'll give you an example. We're going to have to declare an amnesty. We're just going to have to. There is no rational way around it. We have to bring these people into the sunshine because we cannot close a 3,000-mile border. We can only control a 3,000-mile border. Donald Trump still had over 100,000 illegals coming in every month when he left office. It was much less than Joe Biden, but I grew up in Nogales. I'm a graduate of Nogales High School. My dad was in the produce business. I understand the border. I'm telling you, we're not going to close the border. It's not going to happen. So every single thing that he says about this is just red populist meat. Historically, no populist has ever been successful, ever. And this country's had lots of populists, and other countries have had lots of populists. And populism doesn't work because there's no central underlying ideology. And they go, you know how Donald Trump seized on the border early in his campaign? He never even started with it. But someone at a rally yelled out, "Talk about the border." And that's how he operates. And that's great. I think he's far superior to the senile guy on the other side. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that all of these things that everyone thinks is so great, maybe if you thought them through, they're not so great. But we don't think them through because you can't get past hello. That's where anti-politism comes in. Before I get into how the system works, I'll say one more thing. Historically, for the history of the entire mankind, every democracy ends in mob rule. Okay, there is no historical example of a democracy that does not sooner or later end in mob rule. And that's where we are this close to right now. We are doing exactly what every democracy does just before it goes down. You fractionalize, the special interests form, and then the founders who understood this, they didn't set up, the word democracy does not appear in the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
We're a republic. The idea was to not let people vote who didn't have a skin in the game. We did away with that. The idea was to not have senators directly elected because the masses can be asses, and so you want to at least have some controlling body, like the state legislature, select the senators in a less political process, so you get the whole idea was the Senate was to be the House of Lords to the House of Representatives being like the House of Commons in Britain, because remember, this was part of the British Empire. Well, we've destroyed that. Now the senators are just as venal. By the way, the guy who did all of this was Woodrow Wilson, who in my view is the most evil person in history. But I could go into that for a lot of reasons why.
I think we can agree.
Yeah. I think.
Well, maybe not in history.
In American history, Woodrow Wilson destroyed the Republic, and we're just living with it now. Okay, the income tax we never had one before the turn of the century, to the 19th to the 20th century. That was Woodrow Wilson. The point is, the only protection left from mob rule now is the Electoral College, and lots of people on both sides want to get rid of it.
Right.
And they're out of their minds, because once that happens, it's mob rule. That's it. That's mob rule, and America's done. It doesn't matter what else happens, we're done. And we're that close. Plus, we're living on a fiat currency system. There's nothing behind the dollar. And the dollar is the reserve currency of all the other world currencies. In 1948, there was something called the Bretton Woods Agreement, where the United States agreed to stay on the gold standard, to become the reserve currency of the world, and to, this is the most important one, never weaponize the dollar. And in return for that, all the world, even the Soviet Union at the time, even China at the time, used the dollar as its reserve currency. And between that time and the presidency of Joe Biden, never once did we break that promise. Biden weaponized the dollar in the Ukraine war. That's it. That was the last. We're done. You can already see other governments heard it very fast. For example, the BRICS countries are trying to come up with a gold-backed currency to take the place of the dollar in trading petroleum overseas. And once the petrodollar goes, we're done. And the Saudis are already the only reason that historically, and I know I'm jumping around because I know my time is limited. Historically, any country that has over 100% of its national debt exceeds 100% of its GDP, 100% of the time ends up in hyperinflation. There's no historical exception to it. And the only reason that we're not in hyperinflation now is because our dollar is the world's reserve currency. But if you look carefully at our treasury auctions, the foreigners have stopped buying them. And now our own Federal Reserve is buying the excess that aren't being sold off at auction to insurance companies and other foreign governments. That's a Ponzi scheme. That's a legal Ponzi scheme. And and the only thing keeping the dollar up now is confidence. That's what con game means. We all have confidence that the dollar has value, but it has no value except what we believe it has. If an event takes place that undermines the value of the dollar, and by the way, it'll be unexpected. Do I know what it's going to be? No. I could give you a lot of risks of where I think it'll be. I think it'll be the collapse of China, which is taking place now, and somehow we're missing the story. The world's second largest economy is in full free fall, and it's going to be a disaster. Now, when that becomes, since the entire world supply chain runs through China, I think that'll be the event that does it. But having said that, I could be wrong. I'm not a prognosticator. I just know that you can't fight rationality, but we don't have anyone rational running. So let's get to
and why don't we have anyone rational running? Because
everybody who has anything going for them that is meritorious has a skeleton in their closet. Okay, I do. You do. You do. You do. He does. There isn't a human being alive that's lived a life of any kind of achievement of any kind that doesn't have a skeleton. Plus, you have private things. Freak flags, I call them. And, most people want to keep their freak flag private. But, so who runs for office? Sociopaths. People who I'm serious. Donald Trump is a sociopath. Now, so is Joe Biden. I don't mean psychopath. Do not confuse psychopath for sociopath. I don't think they're going to commit murder. That's what a sociopath is, a person who reinvents himself every day. So if he does something horrible yesterday and you say, but yesterday you screwed me over, he'll say, well, that was yesterday. Today I'm promising, but. That's a sociopath. Okay, we all know sociopaths. People who just never feel guilty or responsible. And they're very nice about it. Well, that was then. This is now. And that's who runs for office. So here's how anti-politics works. It's a republic by lottery. So we still have 535 members of Congress, 435 in the House and 100 in the Senate. But instead of elections, we now redivide the congressional districts. Instead of these goofy reverse fishhooks and little teeny pockets and all these things that are gerrymandered by state to state, we simply divide every state into equal geographic areas. Okay? And in anti-politism, there are no parties and no elections. So there is no need to draw weird districts. Now, we hold a census at the time, but just before the time of choosing the next round of congressmen or presidents. In that census, we find out the people who these are the qualifications to be included in the anti-political lottery. You must either have graduated with a 4-year degree, it doesn't matter what it's in, just a 4-year degree, or failing that, you must be an entrepreneur who has started their own business. It's been in business 5 years or longer with 10 or more employees. The reason I say 5 years or longer is because I'm a serial entrepreneur historically, and I know that in the first 5 years businesses are unstable, and I don't want to drag some new business person who's just building their business into public life when they can't afford to leave, in other words. And the reason 10 or more employees is because if you've met a payroll, it changes your view of a lot of things. Okay, it's one thing to run an Amway business, nothing wrong with it, in your home, or to run a single legal practice, or to run a single accounting practice, but that's not really a business. You don't really learn, but plus those guys would qualify anyway because they have degrees. But if you don't have a degree and you're just a self-starter who started your company, you're included in the anti-political lottery as well. And the third is if you have an income in the top third of incomes overall. So you can work for somebody else, but you've risen within your organization, you're in middle to senior management, and you've done something. In other words, all of these people are meritorious. You have to be over the age of 35, and you have to have no criminal record. Okay, now, assuming that that's all true, all of those people are assigned a number from zero. Let's say hypothetically that in the district you live in, there's 1 million people. And I'm only using this as an example because it's a round number. So everyone in the district would get a number after the census that starts 00001 to 1 million. Okay, and everybody has a number. And then we have a lottery on television and live streamed on the internet with a ping pong ball machine. And the reason I suggest a ping pong ball machine is not because I'm a boomer who doesn't understand technology. I'm really good on technology. But you can't hack a ping pong ball machine. It eliminates the entire discussion of hacked voting machines and all that nonsense.
You know, I watched Better Call Saul, and he would put weight in the ping pong balls.
Well, yeah, I understand that. But assuming that the state has people that look at the balls before they run the lottery.
If you trust the people that work for the state.
Well, we can have there's all kinds of ways to get around that. You're just being a pain in my neck. So here we go. So now, and by the way, we're not going to.
Glad to know.
Well, Stephen Richard could be the one guy running the machine.
And before you think of it, we're not going to do background checks on everybody in the district. The only person that has to prove what they answered to those questions is the winner. And assuming they tell the truth, whoever the number comes up, when the 7 numbers are pulled, that's the congressman for the next 4 years. Congressional terms become 4 years. Okay, now you have the right to turn it down. You don't have to serve. This is returning Congress from a career into a duty. Okay, that's the whole idea behind anti-politism. National politics is turned into a duty instead of a career. You are called, and when someone, you know how you're raised and your parents say one day you could grow up to be president of the United States? In anti-politism, that's actually true. That's not true today. Okay, unless you're, here you have to be a member of one of the elites, left or right. In anti-politism, if you're a person of achievement, and where this came from in my head was, I realized that I could walk through any crowd and I could point to 535 people at random, and I'd come up with an average IQ at least that of the Congress, at random. Okay, now, the only argument against anti-politism in doing it this way is we lose the experience of these seasoned Congress people, to which I answer, look at their track record, and I leave my, they got us here. I don't think their experience counts for in my opinion.
They can always hire them as chiefs of staff or lobbyists or something.
That's fine.
That's true.
Now, we changed the congressional term. Stay with me. I'm going to go all the way through it fast. And then
go ahead.
Everyone, this is books on Amazon. It's called A Radical Reset. It's in hardcover, it's in paperback, and it's in Kindle. So take your pick.
Is it on Audible?
It's on, yes. And it's on Amazon. It's called A Radical Reset. I wrote it. Okay, now, back to it. 4 years instead of 2 years, and the senatorial terms go down to 4 years. Every term, the president, the Congress, and the Senate are 4 years. We choose the Senate and the Congress at the same time, but we choose it 6 months before the end of the previous term of the previous Congress. That's for 6 months of on-the-job training for the new congressman taking over for the old congressman, so that they can work. And remember, there's no political parties. They're just people who have achieved something in their lives. And you know, people who have achieved something generally have common values. We don't have to worry about it. If you've been paying taxes the hard way because you're an achiever, you already know taxes are abusive. We have to stop letting people vote for how much they steal. It's basically what it comes down to. You should not be allowed to vote if you do not pay taxes. Because if you don't get the vote for how much you steal, parasites do not get the vote for how much blood they suck. And we have to eliminate that.
And in your system, they're not voting anyway.
They're not voting. There is no voting. But they're not even in the. But there's no barrier to entry to the elite. So we're setting up an elite of merit. But all you have to do to join the elite is to achieve something in your life. Finish college. It doesn't matter what. The whole reason for a 4-year degree is not to prove that you're smarter. It's to prove that you finish what you start. Okay, that you've completed a 4-year degree, you've achieved something in your life. The reason I say entrepreneurs, as one myself, is nothing's harder than starting a business. 99%. I've had plenty of failures along the way to successes. So when you see, all entrepreneurs understand that regulation is a horrible thing and needs to be thought through first. It doesn't matter if they're on the left or right. So I'm saying if we get rid of all of this political that people argue about, and we get down to people who have common sense, who aren't running out of ambition and are not sociopaths. Now, when they're chosen, we pay them. By the way, Congress becomes a part-time job. They only go to Congress once a year to do the budget or if there's a national emergency. The reason for that is, and the reason they spend so much time in Congress now, is because they spend 80% of their time raising money. Since there will be no elections, there will be no money raising. There will be no fundraisers. There will be no big dinners. There will be no donor events, no nothing. Therefore, 80% of what they spend their time on is gone, and it becomes a part-time job. Now, we pay them, and so when they go to Washington, instead of buying a home and all that crap, basically the federal government buys a complex like the Watergate complex. It becomes the apartments for the guys when they're in town. We put them up. They go do their job in Congress. They fly home. Commercial. Okay? End of story. Now, because we're going to get rid of the royal government and the royal presidency, but I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so they go through, and they're paid per diem what they made the year before. So if you get a doctor who's selected, who's made $365,000, you'll pay him $1,000 a day for every day he serves in Congress. If you get a teacher that made $75,000 last year, she'll get $300 and change. Okay, but and we pay them, and since it's a part-time job, they come home. And it becomes part of the civics of the community. So in other words, if a teacher's selected and he or she goes to Washington to serve in Congress for a month or two to pass the budget and comes back to her class, think of the teaching opportunity in the sense of responsibility. And every kid in that class knows they could be the congressperson and later, or the senator and the president. Now, we select these people, 6-month overlap, 4 years for Senate, and the Senate was just done by statewide. Same exact thing, but statewide census, 2 people selected in the entire state. By the way, I'm not speaking to state governments. State governments can be anti-political or they can just go the way they're going now. And the reason for that is states can't print money. And since they can't print money, they can't do nearly as much damage as the federal government can. Okay? The very reason the federal government is dangerous is because it's producing money out of thin air and spending it and getting into areas it was never intended to be. Okay, so let's talk about the president. I know I'm going fast, but it's all in the book because I know we have limited time. For president, 2 years into the congressional term, I patterned this after how the Catholic Church selects the Pope. But instead of the Sistine Chapel, we have it in Congress, in the House of Representatives. We have an open session where they select from among themselves who's the president's going to be. Okay, now, I got this from
So it's like a prime minister.
Exactly. Only I got the idea from my time in the Navy. So when I was in the Navy, I was a Russian linguist. I rode fast attack submarines. I worked out of the National Security Agency. But when you go on but I was never permanent on a submarine because I was.
But you were in a submarine.
Lots of times.
It's very important for the show. We need to know.
Yeah, I've been in a submarine lots of times.
Thank you.
And by the way, this is like before electricity. This is 1975 to 79. I mean, this is not something I did yesterday. Okay, and I worked at the NSA. So, I could tell you a lot about NSA. But anyway, having
Please
said,
do.
One day, we'll get into that.
In the future. We'll have him back on.
The point is, when you go aboard on a fast attack submarine, depending on the class of the submarine, there's typically 120 to 180 people. Again, I rode fast attacks, not boomers, which are missile submarines, which are bigger and have bigger crews. But those things just go down in the middle of the ocean and sit there to stay hidden. Fast attacks, we were actually in the territorial waters of the Soviet Union. We were spying on them pretty actively. But anyway, having said that, it would take you about a week to know the name of everybody on that boat. And by the time you got off in 3 months, you knew who the smart ones were and the stupid ones were and who were the good officers and who were the bad officers and who was the chief that was really smart and who was the chief that was a total idiot. So when these people work together, these 535 people for 2 years and there's no political parties, by the end of that time, they're going to know who's smart and who's stupid. Okay, so let them pick who the president's going to be. By the way, all the constitutional, I believe we don't screw with the Constitution. In fact, we become strict constitutionalists. So if they're bad, they can be impeached. Same answers, same way to get rid of them. Okay, just no political parties. And we don't bother to pick a vice president because it's unnecessary. They can always get together again and choose the next president if something happens to the president. In the meantime, the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House will be second in line because it's not a political office. It'll be the best person in the House will be the Speaker of the House. And the President pro tem of the Senate will be the senator who they select among themselves as the best one. So already in the chain of succession, we have better people. Now, the president serves 4 years and overlaps. That poor schmuck gets stuck for 6 years because he'll serve 2 years in his congressional term, 4 years as president, and then out in the middle of the next, and then they'll do it again and again. Okay, so basically the training is OJT, and everybody that's coming in has done something with their life and didn't ask to be there. We've eliminated the ambition. And once you eliminate the ambition, you eliminate most of the corruption. And once you eliminate the money raising, you get rid of the legal corruption of campaign donations. Okay, there's no more elites because there's no more contributions. Now, does that mean that there aren't going to be lobbyists? Sure, there can be lobbyists, but they can't hold fundraisers for you and they can't give you any money. They have to just tell you what's good or bad about what they have, and that's fine. Everybody should be able under the First Amendment to express their opinion on what their position is. But now, nobody will be a slave to anything. No one will be a slave to a union. No one will be a slave to a military contractor. We're left with people who have done something in their lives, who are there to serve. It's one and done for everybody. And once you've served, you're out of the rotation. You can never even be randomly selected again. It's one and done. Now, in the presidency, my suggestion is no more imperial president, no more hail to the chief, no more treating him like a quasi-king. That's insane. The president is simply the head of the executive branch, one of 3 co-equal branches of government. That's all that was meant to be. He should be or she should be the person that goes over and goes to funerals, but should not be able to entangle us in treaties without the Congress. And the idea that any president can send troops to war without a congressional declaration, as our presidents do now, is not only unconstitutional, it's just plain dangerous. And it's how we've gotten involved in all this crap. In anti-political world, no president goes to war without a congressional authorization to go to war. And since the Congress is not political, you can see how it works, okay? Now, also in anti-politism, chapter by chapter are what are my suggestions of what just rational answers to problems. Like, and I'll use the border quickly just to give you a good example, because that's Donald Trump's #1 issue. So do you mind if I just tell you quickly what the anti-political solution is? It's one of those things that would make both sides angry, which is why you know it's a plan and not propaganda. I know there are parts of this you're just going to hate, and there are parts that the left would absolutely hate, and that's why it's a good plan. Step 1, we have to declare an amnesty. We've got to bring, #1, that people don't understand is the United States is desperately short of workers, and Social Security, without those workers, will collapse soon. Okay, and the reason for that is simple. When Social Security was incepted in 1933, there were 159 workers for every retiree. Franklin Roosevelt set the retirement age at 65 because most people, the average life expectancy was 63. So the whole idea was most people would be dead by the time they got to 65, and the ones that didn't, the whole idea was to help the poorest of the poor. What Social Security has been the most successful government program in history because we've moved our future to our past. It's a huge wealth transfer from our future, our children, our workers, to our past. People like me who are at the end of our careers. That makes no sense. Okay, now, having said that, it's also, today, there are 2 workers for every 1 retiree. And families are having less than 2 children. We're not replacing ourselves. So not only are the immigrants not a problem, we desperately need them. And the good news is Mexico and Latin America have the healthiest demographics in the world. They have a very young population of people that want to work. They're generally Roman Catholic. They're very, very deeply family-oriented. They're exactly who we want. The problem on the border isn't that people are coming. The problem is it's chaos. And there's bad people sneaking in. So the first thing we do is we declare an amnesty. You have to be able to prove that you were here before the amnesty, so we don't have people running in the country to get the amnesty. We can't make it like run in to get, you have to have a utility bill or a rental receipt or something that proves that you were in the country before the amnesty was declared. And the amnesty is only open for a year. Okay, so it's not a forever. But when you come in, you get an orange card, not a green card. Now, I just picked that color. I'm just using it. The reason for an orange card, the orange card entitles you to work, live, buy, sell, but you can't vote, and there's no path to citizenship. This is the price you pay for breaking the law to come in the first place. Okay, yes, they came in and they broke the law. We're going to let you work here. And by the way, living in Nogales, particularly in my family's in the produce business, I'm going to tell you something that a lot of people don't understand. Mexicans love Mexico. They stay in this country because they can't go back. If we had a border where if you had an orange card, you could go home and then come back, a huge percentage of these people would be going home for the winter and just coming for the growing season. Okay, and they're not coming here to be Americans. They're coming here to work and support their families. They'll love this deal. Okay, 2, we should get rid of all immigration quotas. Okay, now,
What about the Chinese?
Stay with me. Let me go to the Chinese now. Currently in our country, we have about 250,000 foreign students in our universities, and they're almost all taking STEM classes: science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yep.
They should be given by the way, Donald Trump already said this in the last debate. This is his idea that I'm agreeing with. They should all get a green card the minute they graduate, automatically. If they don't have a criminal record, every foreign graduate from an American university with a STEM degree, which we desperately need, okay, should be given a green card. And most of them would stay if we did. The idea that they have to go home after they spend 4 years here learning how to be an American, and they understand capitalism, and they're well educated in exactly the fields we need them, why are we sending them home? And why do we have idiotic quotas? And besides, we need them to support our welfare state, to support Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. Without them, it'll fail. The same thing's true with bringing these illegals into the open sky. Let them work. Let them pay taxes. Let them be like everybody else, and we can support this welfare state that we've built. Now, having said all that, okay, we should also have unlimited immigration on the green cards, provided you have a job waiting for you in the United States and you don't have a criminal record in your country of origin, because we need these workers. Now, that's easy, because I happen to know tons of growers who would put recruiting offices south of the border and recruit these guys in and bring them up, house them, travel them, pay them. I mean, believe me, plenty of employers would love these people. Mexican people are very hardworking, very family-oriented. It's not a coincidence that Ford has plants in Mexico. It's not a coincidence that Sony has plants in Mexico. They have an educated workforce that really does a good job, that's highly productive, and they're next door to the United States, and they have a free trade treaty, which means that everything they're our largest trading partner. This is insane. It's just so insane to me how we treat Mexico. But anyway, this could be because I've done business in Mexico and I lived in Mexico for 6 years. That could be I'm a little biased. But I've lived among the Mexican people. It's the things that people say. Now, I mean, I have ex-relatives from my marriage that live in Iowa that don't like Mexicans, and I've always said to them, how many Mexicans do you actually know? None. I know 1,000 at least. I mean, if you don't know any, you don't have an opinion. You're not entitled. You don't know what you're talking about.
And what about the criminals that come over here? And terrorists.
Here I come. Now I'm getting to the good part that the left's going to hate. So now we have all these people without criminal records coming in. And the other thing that we have to do, and you're really going to hate this, we have to end the drug war. We have to legalize all drugs. Not decriminalize, legalize. What we have now is everything. Let me explain something to you. And
it is radical.
Let me tell you where this came from. Let me tell you where this came from. First of all, for millions of people, longevity is not their goal. Okay, they're not trying to live a long time. They're just trying to get
a good time.
No, they're not here for a good time. They've been born into horrible situations. They have terrible backgrounds. They're permanently damaged for one reason or the other, emotionally, and and they're not going to get better. This anyone can pull themselves up. These people are generally coming from single-parent families. They're generally coming from incest, from all kinds of things that go on in their background that they're not going to recover from. Let's get real, okay? All they want to do is dope themselves up and get through the day. That's all they want to do. The reason that they steal is because it's illegal. And in a weird way, the government is protecting the cartels because they make the cost of avoiding interdiction so expensive to the cartels. And I'll tell you why I know this in a minute. That they shut out the little guys. So the cartels love illegal drugs because it protects them against all competition, because no one else can afford to avoid the cost of interdiction. Okay? And they love idiots like Trump building walls because they move most of the stuff by tunnels. Now, how do I know that? Because I went to prison. I was a big real estate developer that failed in 2008, and I went away. And I deserve to go away. I never discussed mitigation on what I did because there is no mitigating what I did. And the minute that I start to talk about it, was a failure of character, and I'm not going to weasel. Okay? And I pay restitution. I pay restitution to this day. It was my company failed in 2008 along with everybody else in the real estate crash. And instead of bankrupting the company, I tried to save it. And in saving it, I broke the law. Period. End of story. I knew I did it. I deserve what I got, but it gave me a very unique perspective. How many guys, I was a multimillionaire with private planes. How many guys like that end up in basically immersed in the lowest part of society for nearly 5 years? It was eye-opening, okay? And one of the things in there, that prison is racially segregated by the prisoners, not by the administration. The prisoners don't like each other. So they break into racial groups. There's the white guys that are called the Woods, which is short for Peckerwood. Why they chose that, I don't know. There are the black guys who call themselves the kinfolk. There are the Mexican Americans or Latinos that are American citizens. Those are the Chicanos. There's the foreign Latinos, which are the Paisas. And then there's the Native Americans who are called the Chiefs. And each group is run by, for example, the whites are run by the Aryan Brotherhood. I rolled black when I was in prison. I know this is going to sound funny because I'm about the whitest guy you ever saw, but I'm Jewish. And the Aryan brothers hate Jews. So I rolled black. Okay, so I ate with the black inmates and I hung out with the black inmates. What? I get along great with black people and I just hate those brothers. So I rolled black. Okay, I'm not going to pretend I'm a Nazi.
But you were in Mexico for a long time. Why didn't you roll with the Latinos?
Well, I'm going to get to that part soon.
Chicanos.
Chicanos.
Oh, Chicanos.
My best friends in prison were Paisas. Now, the reason I got along with the Paisas is those were all the cartel guys, and they were the smartest guys there. So they were the smartest guys to talk to. And as part of that, I got quite an education on drug interdiction. Let me give you an example. I was on 2 prison yards, Yuma and Kingman. In Kingman alone, the Paisas were doing $3.5 million a year in drugs on the prison yard. Okay, there were 1,800 inmates. Most of them were addicts. All of them were taking drugs. And how the drugs were coming in was by drone. It was dropped in the corner of the yard when one of the corrections officers, who were corrupt because they're paid nothing, picked up the drugs, gave it to the Paisas, who then distributed it on the yard. Okay, and then there was a sophisticated barter system of how they paid for their drugs. But I know the number because they kept trying to get me to launder the money for them. I mean, they knew my background. I was probably the biggest criminal on the yard in terms of how much money was involved. I lost about $10 million. So by far, I was the biggest criminal on the yard in terms of the size. And that made me kind of infamous. And they just were constantly trying to recruit me. And listen, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. One was plenty for me. I would never, ever do that again. However, I also think it was maybe the best experience of my life for 2 reasons. One is I got to see a part of a country that I would have never been exposed to, which gives me a very unique point of view. And secondly, it knocked the arrogance right out of me. Because I'm going to tell you, before then, I was an arrogant okay, I thought basically that I had the word. I mean, I was the and, there's nothing like a really big failure that's your own fault if you own it to understand that you're not so hot. And that was the greatest thing. Okay, now I don't love a lot of the other parts of it, but, you put your head down, you endure, you do what you have to do. So here's what I know. I know that they're using tunnels. There are thousands of them. Okay, and they're not out in the middle of the desert like in the movie Sicario. They're right in the middle of town like Nogales or Juarez because it's a lot easier to hide a tree in the forest than out in the middle of nowhere. And they have entire families of Mexicans who are raised to be tunnel builders. They're literally the family, just like families in West Virginia dig for coal. And these families of tunnel builders, the mother, the father, the kids, this is all they do. They go from property to property building tunnels for the cartels. Every tunnel is used no more than twice. They never use it more than twice because they know that the people that they're dragging through, the human trafficking as well as the drugs, are going to rat them out. And they don't use the tunnels more than twice because they don't want to they're too smart. That's why when they find a tunnel, you ever notice when they find a tunnel, there's never anybody in it?
They're deserted.
It's deserted. Yeah, and the cartels let them find those because it lets them think they won something. Or sometimes the cartels will have somebody that's not doing business the way they like, and they'll rat them out to the police on purpose to let them have a win. The cartels, the smart people work for the cartels because that's where the money is. I knew cartel truck drivers. By the way, how they move most of the drugs around the country, the cartels, is in milk trucks. So a lot of these dairies are fronts for drugs because you can wrap the drugs and bury it in the milk in the middle of the tank, and the dogs can't smell it. Okay, so they're using milk trucks. They bring it up through the tunnels. They take it to the dairies that they control. They put it into the milk trucks, and the drivers are making $1 million a year. Now, if the truck driver is making $1 million a year, and this is the first, I'm not just heard, I didn't hear this. I know these guys, okay? What do you think, where do you think talent goes? Do you think they're going to go work for the government for $50,000? What is a policeman but a bureaucrat with a gun? And I say this with love, okay? But they're not as smart as the cartels. They're never going to outsmart the cartels. They're never going to beat them. And We've been fighting this war since 1971. We've had no reduction in drug usage. And oh, by the way, we filled the prisons full of black people and Latinos disproportionately in their destroyed communities that the government destroyed, and we've got to stop it. And the only way we're going to stop it is to stop treating, because a person, back to my original point, is so sad that they just want to medicate their way through life. Why are we making them a criminal? Why is doing something to yourself a criminal act? Now, by making that a criminal act, and let me tell you, let me tell you, my friends, of those 1,800 guys that were in that prison when I was there, 1,400 of them could have gone home. Okay, most of them were not real criminals. They were just addicts who did minor crimes to try to support their habits that they would have never done, because heroin, this is the last thing I learned, is selling for 100 times its true cost. Okay, heroin is cheap. You can't patent it because it's been around forever. They could never compete with Walgreens. An addict should be able to walk into Walgreens, buy the heroin they need, and go home. They could support their habit for $20 a week. I'm not saying don't make it 18 and over and all that other. I'm not treat it like cigarettes and alcohol, like anything else. By the way, by far, alcohol is the worst drug, because when you see them go into withdrawal in prison, they have to put those guys in IV. The guys with drugs have 4 hours, then they're fine. The alcoholics, they have to bring them to the hospital and hook them up because they'll die from withdrawal from alcohol. By far, alcohol is more destructive. Last year in the United States, over 300,000 people died of alcohol-related deaths. There were about 50,000 fentanyl overdoses. Come on. Alcohol is a much more dangerous drug, yet we randomly have decided this good, that bad. And fentanyl is not being put in the drugs in some secret plot. It's being put there because the addicts want it. This is a business that is serving its customers. These guys know exactly how much to take and exactly what their dosages are and how much they can tolerate. Baby, why are we trying to stop? There is no successful example in the history of the world in any government of prohibition succeeding. No prohibition ever succeeds. When the public wants something, they're going to have it. The question is, do you want to control it or do you want what we have now? Because if you legalize it, now we save about $500 billion a year being wasted between the DEI, the DEA, the FBI, the ATF, local, state, federal, all these guys are making their living not stopping a. How about we take that money and either return it to the taxpayers or use it productively, like to control our border? Now, back to the border. Once you legalize drugs, now the Border Patrol and the ICE and the DEA, and the DEA goes away. There is no DEA. ATF.
I can get behind that.
And by the way, in my opinion, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms should be the name of a convenience store, not the name of a federal agency.
I can get behind that.
Okay, so there's no ATF in the world of anti-politism, because the anti-political system is constitutional. So we're in favor of unrestricted Second Amendment rights. We don't think criminals. I know a lot of criminals. They're going to get the guns, legal or not. Trust me.
Okay, before we hop to Yvette, I have one very important question to ask.
Okay.
Do those milk drivers need their CDL, or could anyone do it?
They have their CDL.
Oh, you want to be a milk driver now?
Okay, I'm just kidding.
Isn't there a Maricopa Board of Supervisor that owns a milk business?
I'm just telling you guys.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Every time I see
remember during the debate, Biden said he was going to get those big fentanyl machines that don't exist. Remember that said there's no such thing as the big fentanyl machine. I don't know where he got that one. We're never going to stop drugs. But we could use the money we're spending. I'll give homelessness. All these cities are full of homeless people. Now, homeless people are about 50% mentally ill and about 50% out of control addicts. Generally, I know I'm making a broad generalization. What if we took the money we're pissing away pointlessly on drug interdiction, and instead of trying to stop it, we control it? So what we do is, in the outskirts of a city, in an industrial area where nobody lives, you build a big park of tiny homes. Okay, you know what I'm talking.
Chicago.
Yeah, like the little, those little park model homes. Just 1,000 of them, however many you need for you put them out nowhere near anybody, and they're not prisons. Okay, but you round up the mentally ill homeless. Now that you have a lot of money, it's a disgrace in a country as rich as we are that we have mentally ill people loose on the street. We round them up and we build proper facilities and proper places for them to live in, sanitariums, and we'll have plenty of money to do it. We won't have to raise anybody's taxes, and we can put away these schizophrenics where they can be happy and live happily ever after, properly staffed. For the other half that are just out of control addicts, we round them up, we take them out to the tiny home village, and at that village, they can have any drug or alcohol that they want free of charge, and they're going to get their little tiny home, and it's going to be their place, and they can sit in there and drug themselves into oblivion or drink themselves to death. On the site, you have a clinic, so if there's an overdose, there's someone to help them if they need it. And there's also rehabilitation available full-time on the site for those very small group that want to get out of it. But for the rest, let them quietly go about their business, just not crapping on the sidewalk in front of your house. And if we take some of the money that we piss away on this pointless drug war and this stupid way we enforce the border. And now, if the border agents aren't trying to stop drugs and we have a rational border policy, now they can concentrate their resources on real criminals and real terrorists. And it's a lot easier if you're concentrating on a lot smaller target. They shouldn't be wasting their time rounding up people coming up here to work for a couple of days. I mean, they're just stupid. You know, it's just stupid, stupid, stupid. Yet people don't think it all the way through. And then even if you agree with me, if you were running for office, you would never say any of this because you wouldn't win. You'd get crushed because the press would not let you speak long enough to explain what you're doing. That's why this is not going to happen until the SHTF. The radical becomes reasonable when the man. I'm the first to tell you that as long as things keep going the way they are, what I'm telling you will never happen.
And this book will become famous.
I'll become the guy.
You heard it here first.
And by the way,
it sounds a lot like the Hunger Games to me.
By the way,
I think there's already a book.
By the way, you'll notice.
You'll
notice that I eliminated anyone with a criminal record, so I eliminated myself. And the reason that I did that is because why take a chance? Now, I know I would never commit another crime, but why take a chance? There are plenty of other people. You know, the cemeteries are full of people that couldn't be replaced. You know, when you hear like, what will we ever do when this one leaves? You know, the cemeteries are full of people that couldn't be replaced for centuries. Everyone can be replaced. No one's that important. No one is that special. You know, that's just ridiculous. Okay, so replace them.
Okay, well, we have to...
I know, I went too far.
It's okay. Well,
so you're not running for nothing.
No, I'll never run for office.
And you're not running for re-election, so you don't have...
Oh, one more thing. We have I just want to mention it. We have I founded a nonprofit. It's called the 1964plan.org. That's the website, the 1964plan.org. Eric, if you would stick it up, maybe, that would be unbelievably awesome. And if you want to talk to me directly, that's how you get hold of me. Thank you.
And then...
we'll hop over to someone who can't be replaced today, at least, and that's Yvette with Carrie Lake. I know that I met Yvette last cycle, working with Latinos for Lake, and so I'm really excited to have you on today so you can chat with us, tell us what's up. I know Carrie had a ton of events with Tito Ortiz. It was like all over social media and saw a bunch of great pictures. I actually saw him at the at the Trump when Trump came and did his town hall. I saw him sitting up there front row with Carrie, and that was pretty cool. So what's it like working on all these projects, and what kind of plans do you have? You're also in Southern Arizona, right, Yvette?
I don't hear. Do you hear?
Oh, I can't hear you.
Yvette, we can't hear you.
Someone could read lips.
I know, I was going to say, she said hi.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
I think she said something like "pleasure to be with you" and representing the Latinos for Lake, and
yep, I heard.
And like I mentioned, Yvette is also, I think she's a co-chair of the Latino coalition that Turning Point has. I know we had a meeting earlier this year that I got to see Yvette there at that meeting. So I know you do that. Let's see. Can we check your sound again? I can hear you.
I can hear it from the screen, but I don't hear it in my headset. Do you hear it in the headset?
I can hear you well enough. Go ahead. Tell us what you got up on your agenda coming up. And that's Yvette with Carrie Lake. I know that I met Yvette last cycle. Hi. Latinos for Lake. And so I'm really excited to have you on today so you can chat with us, tell us what's up. I know Carrie had a ton of events with Tito Ortiz. It was like all over social media and saw a bunch of great pictures. I actually saw him at the, at the Trump, when Trump came and did his town hall. I saw him sitting in front row with Carrie, and that was pretty cool. So what's it like working on all these projects, and what kind of plans do you have? You're also in Southern Arizona, right, Yvette?
I am. So I go pretty much all over for Carrie.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear
you. Can hear me? Oh, let me see. Let's see.
Someone could
Can you hear
read
me now?
I know. I was gonna say. She said hi.
Does that work better?
Okay.
Hold on
Yeah,
a second.
I think she said something like "pleasure to be with you" and representing the Latinos for Lake, and
Yep, I heard
And
that.
like I mentioned, Yvette is also, I think she's a co-chair of the Latino coalition that Turning Point has. I know we had a meeting earlier this year that I got to meet, see Yvette there at that meeting. So I know you do that. Let's see. Can we check your sound again?
Yeah, let's see. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
I can hear it from the screen, but I don't hear it in my
I
headset.
can,
Do hear it in
you
your
know, you
headset?
guys sound like really far away for some reason. I don't know why. Let me see. Can you hear me or not really?
I can hear
A
you well
little
enough.
bit?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Tell us
so
what you got up on your agenda coming up.
okay, so yeah, so I am the chairwoman for Latinos for Lake for Carrie, and I also am the director of Latino community engagement for her. So I pretty much do everything
There we
for
go.
her, a lot of different things, different projects that I work on, but managing, helping manage the campaign and really just bring in like our Latino community because it's so important for us to get out and vote and, really just not just pick Carrie because she's the right person, but our lives are on the line here, every single person in America and in Arizona, because this fight is really not just about politics. It's about good versus evil. And we need to conquer that and take our country back. And we need to, bring in people that weren't, supportive last time because maybe they're Democrats or independents, but, they're even seeing a big change because they don't want to deal with inflation. A lot of them have also immigrated here legally, and they're seeing all these illegals that come in and they're getting all these things free when they had to do processes and pay money and bring their families here and do the right thing. And they're not in accordance with that. So that's why we're seeing a big shift right now in the Latino community, even more than the last election for President Trump and for Kerry. So that's a real big deal. And, being born in Tucson, raised on the border of Nogales, I've seen how the border has changed a lot. And, back in the day, I would say probably 30 years ago, we had people that would cross, but it wasn't like the amount of people that are crossing now. And of course, I would say this is the most we've ever seen under President Biden. Because he's just invited the whole world here. And we have 168 different countries coming through our southern border. And, they're killing our people. The fentanyl, not just them taking people's jobs here too, but I mean, just the fact that Ruben Gallegos voted to have illegals actually vote in the elections has been terrible too. So we're just working on a lot of projects. We're doing some rallies. And this morning I was with Carrie. We were in Tucson and it was amazing. There was a lot of support there. And she's wonderful. She supports the Latino community. And I have to say, she has been the only Senate candidate that has been down to the southern part of Arizona the most, including Nogales and the border and Tucson. And not even Ruben Gallegos has been down there that much. I think he's been down there like twice since he started running, and he's been in office 10 years. So what does that tell you? No, Carrie's wonderful, and I'm excited to be able to work with her again on this Senate campaign now on this cycle. And she's got her book out, so I know some of you have like checked it out. Carrie Lake, you got to check that out. And so just a lot of cool things. Tito was awesome. And he's been working with us too with the campaign, getting the word out, spreading the word for Carrie. He's amazing. My son and I actually had the privilege to pick him up at the airport when he came in. So he was excited about that. And so he's a pretty cool dude. But yeah, I mean, we're just doing a lot of stuff, and we really support, everybody's support for her because we really need the Senate seat for Carrie. And, she's going to work really well with President Trump, and we're going to, get those policies back in place that President Trump had on the border so that we can secure it and we can get a better future for our kids. That's what it's all about.
This is Don Jorge. Could you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you really far away, but I can hear you.
She can hear you.
Okay. Do they look at the analytics? Do they look at what the people are seeing, that they don't have enough commercialization of Lake on TV, as well as what Gallego's doing? Do they see that? Do they see that it all comes to numbers? And I love Carrie Lake. I voted for her, but I don't see the numbers that she's going to need in the general election. She'll win the primary because Lamb is following in the same category because he has no recognition in commercials. Do you guys see that? I mean, does she see that? Is there money enough?
Yes.
I do see a lot of Ruben's commercials all over the place.
Yes.
They're all over the
So-
place. People, okay, this happened with cinema. When cinema ran, it was a commercialization of cinema, and she won by a landslide.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying is, does Carrie Lake see that? Because if she lets it go the way it's going,
So you
sadly,
want to see a lot more advertising from Carrie.
yeah,
is what
it's
you're
not
saying.
gonna.
I agree. Yeah, I understand what
they
you're
see on
saying.
TV. If they
Yeah,
see
on the TV.
Gallego with the
And I
military,
think it's
Gallego,
because he doesn't have a primary opponent, and Carrie
Right.
does, and you don't want to spend all of your pennies in the primary, So she wants to be conscientious and smart, and she's got to fight
Exactly.
Ruben if she wins this primary. So you don't want to spend all your time, and you don't, of course, want to attack a fellow
And
Republican.
Democrats are the party of billionaires, so they've got more money.
Exactly.
You know, they've
Exactly.
probably got
And
5
that's
times
really
as
what it
money.
boils down to
So all
is,
those tech
it boils
billionaires,
down to fundraising.
Again, it's the big billionaire party, not the working class, not the people that are actually getting things done.
does she talk about
So basically what happens with Carrie is that, she has been the one to raise the most money as the Republican, Senate candidate. Obviously, she's raised more money than Lamb. But I have full confidence, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be the nominee, coming out of the primary, she's going to be the winner. But it really boils down to fundraising. We need everybody's help. I mean, even if you can give $1, $5, it all adds up, right? But she's going to need more money, and that is the bottom line, because advertising costs money. So she does have some ads out right now, and we have ran some, quite often. But going into the general, we're going to need everybody's support, and we are going to need more fundraising. So, I mean, if everybody's watching this, wants to donate, you can go to www.carrielake.com and donate today. It could be $1, it could be $5, $10, whatever you can give helps her. And, that's really what it boils down to, because obviously Ruben Gallegos is raising funds or given money from, sources unknown, right? And he's going to have more from, the sources, but that doesn't make him a better person for the job. And really, I believe in God, and so does Carrie. And so even though she doesn't have the amount of money that Gallegos has, we can still win this race against him and beat him in November. And I really have full confidence, especially with my team, that we go out and we talk to, the communities that, are Democrat and independent. And we're seeing more and more of them. We did a rally on the border in Nogales, and there was 90% Democrats and independents in there than there were Republicans. They are tired. They are ready for change. They are done with these promises that all the Democrats say all the time, and they never come through. They only remember you when it's election time and they need that vote, and they could care less about you the rest of the time. And so we are done with them. We need somebody like Carrie Lake that's going to support the Latino community and all of us in Arizona and America, and do what's right and get the inflation down, secure our border, conserve our water, make sure that we have, better education for our kids. And best of all, we want to be energy independent. She supports all of that, and she's a great candidate. And really what is best is that she's a mom. I'm a mom, Cheryl's a mom, and, she's been around us quite often to know, how we are. But, Carrie is family first. And that's what she considers all of us Arizonans in America. We're her family. And so what is she going to do best is take care of us. And she's going to make sure that, she does that. And I like her plans. She has a good homeless plan too, that she's had for, a while now, and we're excited to implement that. So we're just waiting for November 5th, but I am more than certain that Carrie is going to beat Ruben Gallegos in November. And that is going to be a grand day, because I am waiting for that. He thinks he has it in the bag. He really thinks that all these Latinos are going to vote for him because he's Ruben Gallegos. Well, I got news for you. Nobody knows who he is. I've asked several people, and they're like, who is that? Who are you talking about? They don't even know the guy. And they know Carrie more than they know him. But I agree with the commercials. We will be seeing more, but we do need fundraising. So if anybody can donate to her, that would be wonderful. Like I said, that would be a huge push for her.
If people are interested in helping out, the boots on the ground and canvassing and stuff like that, and they want to join Latinos for Lake. How would we do that, Yvette?
So you just go online on the website. We have a link for coalitions. We have several coalitions. We have a Dad's Coalition, Moms for Carrie Coalition, Latinos for Lake Coalition, veterans. So whatever you're interested in, even if you just want to door knock or make phone calls or, table or do anything, you can go online to her website, put in what you're interested in, and then one of our volunteer coordinators will reach out to you, and then they will get in touch with you, and then we'll get you involved. We'll get you a T-shirt and some other cool stuff, and get you going, because she's had the largest volunteer base campaign actually in the country. And last cycle it was the same thing. She had like the number one campaign in the country with the most volunteers and the most Latinos. So we're in that same section now, right? And so we're excited, but I think she's going to make it, and she's going to make it because we believe in God and we believe in Arizonans and Americans, and she believes in doing what's right. And that's what's important, that she's going to follow through. She's not a person that will ever promise something that she can't keep, and that's very important to know.
When she ran for governor, it was the same thing. She had it in the bag. And who is the governor now? I mean, this is just the
truth. Is she the governor, though?
She had it in the bag, but she didn't win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some things were done, obviously, and there is fraud in every election, right? I don't care if they're small or big. There's always something going on. But the way to do it this time is it's got to be too big to rig, like President Trump says. Too big to rig. We need everybody and their mom, their neighbor, take your dog, your cat. I mean, everybody, everybody's got to vote, right? Because, 350,000 people in Arizona didn't vote last time. Like, that's a lot of people. So where were you? Like, don't complain at home. Don't talk about things that you want change about unless you're going to go out and do something about it. If you want to change it and you want difference, you got to volunteer with a great campaign. Go out and support your candidates. Get out there, do the work, go door knock, talk to people, but don't just sit on your couch and expect other people to fix it for you. You got to do it for yourself and for your country. And now's the time to do it. So I hope all those people that didn't vote last time in the election come out and they support Carrie and they support President Trump, and we take back our country, because our lives are depending on it, our children's future. And if anybody has grandchildren, their future is at stake. We really need to fix this. We can't go under Biden or Kamala another 4 years. I mean, look at the debate. It was a complete disaster. I mean, but they knew already how he was when he ran, but I just think it's terrible that they've allowed it. And look at what it got us. I mean, 3 months later, when he was in office, we were done. We were already cooked 3 months into his presidency. And now I can't imagine another 4 years under him. I think it would just destroy us completely. And that would be the end. It'd be World War III, and we would just be lost.
Yep. I know a lot of people who feel that way, and the only thing that we can do is do the work ourselves. Just get out there, canvas, support who you're going to support, and you need to vote. It's super important. It's what we can do, our civic duty. We owe it to our future to give them the best possible options that we have. And so I think that we need to get President Trump out there, and they're going to be nominating him officially this week. They better. And then we can just, hit the ground running after that, and we'll find out who the VP is. And we were going to go around and say who we thought it might be before we end it here. So Yvette, who do you think is going to be Trump's pick?
With him, it's kind of hard. But I mean, if it is between, Scott and, obviously the governor and, Marco Rubio, I don't know. I would hope he picks Marco Rubio because he's bilingual. He's Latino. And I think that would really go a long way for him. Plus, I mean, he's a great guy. He's nice. He's personable. And I think they would make a great team. So I think if anybody, he should pick Marco Rubio.
Nice. And Jorge also is votes for Marco Rubio. I'm personally rooting for Ben Carson there, Dr. Ben Carson. And what do you guys think?
Well, yeah. Marco Rubio can't be the vice president because they're both residents of the same state. And and that's a constitutional prohibition. So the only way they can get around it is for one of them to leave the state and become a resident of a different state, which would mean the loss of Rubio's Senate seat. if they were to lose, which would be a very big mistake, and he's just not going to be the vice president. I think my personal choice is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I just think that she's head and shoulders the class of the. I realize she's not even on anybody's radar, but I just think she's the best choice as a governor. She was a press secretary. She's loyal to Trump. She's a killer. I like her. That's who I'd pick.
Alan.
Well, I think there is a lot of upside to Ben Carson. I think there's a lot of older people that are not supporting Donald Trump that would come on board. But I still think with the current chaos, and it is chaos over in Biden camp and in the Democrat camp right now, I think the Trump team is going to go with the least risky pick, and that's going to be Burgum, the North Dakota governor. You know, electoral votes. If he doesn't offer anything, Trump would win, but Trump's going to win North Dakota anyway.
Yeah, North Dakota's the red state,
so it's not going to be an issue.
About Vance.
So I think JD Vance was going to be my favorite because he's younger. I think that. You look at that train disaster, he was right there, and that's right on the border of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has become a swing state again. I think there's an opportunity to win.
And Trump is polling okay in Pennsylvania,
yeah,
isn't he?
And if Trump wins, so if we're sitting on, November, 5th, that Tuesday night, and it's like midnight here, and they call it for Pennsylvania, just like Trump won in 2016, when they called Pennsylvania and Michigan for Trump, because I was thinking, oh, crap, I don't know if Trump's going to win this, right? Yeah. And when they called Michigan and Pennsylvania for Trump, we knew it was over. We knew we were going to win. And same thing
because of the fact that it's Pennsylvania. He's going to go with somebody that's going to bring him vote.
I still think that brings Pennsylvania into cards, but I have a feeling his team's going to be like no risk whatsoever. And think about this. Biden is the chaos candidate and Trump is the non-chaos candidate. That who would have said that 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Right.
But that's what's going on today. Happened. And I think that's I would bet money that's what. So if I was gonna go and predict it, I'd put my money there.
Okay, well.
By the way, I think your choice of Ben Carson would be a genius choice. I just have the more you think about it, Trump is really taking away black support from the Democrats.
Yes.
And Ben Carson's a class act and a man of achievement. Yes. Just saying.
Well, so is Scott too.
Scott is not he's not as telegenic. Let's just say he comes off like a mushroom. The Ben Carson knows how to be on TV.
He conducts himself. Yeah, I like.
He's a doctor.
I like him, Scott too. He's just not telegenic and he's mushy. But Ben Carson, I'm not a Republican, so I'm just giving you outside perception.
Giving us the
Carson's a good pick, especially with. So if you look at the numbers. Trump's not doing as well with older boomers. Ben Carson picks up a good percentage of that.
He's the boomer.
I think no matter who President Trump picks, he's going to make the right choice, and we're all going to rally behind them and get them in office. So I'm pretty sure he'll pick the right person for the job. No matter who we think we would like, I think they're all great. But I think he'll do a good job picking the right person for the job because, like he says, whoever I pick has to also be a great president too.
I really think that.
I thought Trump was already the vice president, according to.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
I really hope that Trump picks somebody that will energize people even more.
All you Republicans got to understand: if the Democrats have a brain, they could still beat you, because if they nominate someone like
big if.
They could. I'll tell you who would beat Trump. Whitmer would beat Trump badly. So you got to hope that they go for Harris, because remember that the majority of the American people didn't like either one of these people.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know how they could get.
I understand
out of Harris.
Well, the problem is the money. That's why I think it'll be Harris.
That's why I said I don't know how they could get out of that. So, I mean.
Plus, they would antagonize black people.
Another conversation. Exactly. And women. But that's a whole nother conversation. So, next week, we will check in and hopefully we'll know who the VP pick it was. And we will have someone to be super excited about even more. And hopefully I'm right. That's also.
I hope you're right.
Good luck. Good luck.
Yay.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Yvette, for all you do, helping with.
Yvette, what's your last name? What's Yvette's last name?
Serino.
Because I grew up in Nogales. Is your family in the produce business?
No, my grandfather actually was in office for decades. We were Democrats. We were a prominent family in Nogales.
Everybody
Tony
in
Serino.
Santa Cruz County is a Democrat, even when they're Republicans. They just so they can vote in the primary.
My grandfather's name is Tony Serino. So he was vice mayor, alderman for many, many decades. And my family also owned a Texaco gas station down there next to City Hall.
Oh, I know where their
And,
gas station is. I
Yeah,
lived
so
on
it's not a
Pajarito Street.
Texaco
I lived
anymore.
up on the top of the hill, right behind Poochie's Market. Long story. We'll talk another day, Yvette. Bye.
I know.
We got Nogales connections. We got submarine connections. It's
That's right.
all coming together.
I love it. Yeah, well, we should get together. So, Cheryl, if you want to share my information, that would be great.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We had a great show. And all right.
Watch your kids around water. Don't leave them unattended and pets unattended in this hot
Yes.
heat.
And drink
Be a
water.
responsible parent. Be a responsible parent when it comes to pools. Designate somebody responsible to watch the kids around pool, and definitely don't
Yes.
leave them in vehicles. It gets hot in those vehicles, and I'm glad they're smashing the windows when they find pets in the cars if nobody's around. So, we'll see you next week. I'll probably won't be here because I'm doing the elections, and
Yep. We have some teenage Republicans and we have
Yeah.
some
Nice.
school choice advocates scheduled for the show. So it'll be very interesting.
yeah, because I'll be back at the end of
He'll be
July.
back- yeah, I would say he'll be back in
after-
August.
After the primary finishes, then I'll be back. Going home, he'll be back. So thank you.
Yay.
God bless you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.